backwards causation is it's totally against what the Course in Miracles believes. But this is what the in time, the past, present, and future, backwards causation. And then the reason that I'm bringing this up is because, the idea of sin, guilt, and fear is past, present, and future, and Ken describes that perfectly. But backwards causation, Todd Fink was sharing about that on Sundays, Maureen Muldoon Sunday. If anybody wants to watch it, it's really good. He was talking about intuition. And
that was really good.
Wasn't that really good? Wasn't it?
He's really good. He's amazing. Yeah.
He's brilliant. He's a scholar.
Is he on Maureen's a lot? Is he on
once a month he's on Maureen's?
Oh, he does once a month. He comes because you go to her services. Doesn't cost you anything. But if you join her lessons, it's like I just don't want to spend any more money. That's it's only $30.
You can go to the services; it's free.
Right. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Good.
But backwards causation. Okay, for an example, for me, okay, like when my husband committed suicide, to me, that was my world ended. Okay, I believed I could not live without him. I literally believed that, and I did not know what anything is for. I did not know that this would become my greatest awakening. I did not know that this was my path. This was my path, and it happened perfectly to wake me up from attachment, to wake me up from all the thoughts that I believed and all the blame. It taught me not to blame. But what Todd shared was really simple and really clear. He said that he was in traffic and he was on his way. Well, he wasn't in traffic yet. He was on his way to this vegetarian diner that, Lynn, you probably remember the story. He was on his way to this vegetarian diner or a restaurant or whatever. And like, he missed his exit. So he was like, oh my God, I missed my exit. I'm like, now I'm going to be like 2 hours behind. And he was like, really like pissed, but he ended up getting to the restaurant late. But when he got there, he said that he was in the parking lot and he was like, how when someone's trying to park in the same spot you are, so he was trying to park in the spot that someone else was trying to park into, but it turned out to be this girl that he knew, like this old friend that he knew. And so it turned out to be, I'm not going to go into details, but it just turned out to be such a great experience. And it was like, wow, if I wouldn't have missed that, exit, I never would have seen her. And she was moving like the next day or something. So they got together and they got to talk, and it was just like perfect. So everything, my point is everything is happening perfectly. Everything. And the backward
healing. It's not about having a good world here. It's about how are we going to heal our minds so we can just keep growing. Anyway, you girls who wants to start with this one? Because Lynn, I found the book. So next Tuesday, put me on the schedule, 9:30. How come I can't hear now? Uh-oh, I can't hear again.
Can you hear?
I couldn't for a while. I'm getting an iPad tomorrow because I can't do this anymore.
What you just said, the whole way to healing is that recognition that it's all the same. Total equality and oneness, and that we take every special relationship, regardless of the form of it, and make it holy, which is to make it one. So that's what we're doing here in chapter 15. Dove has his hand up.
I just want to say, Sharon, I sent you a copy of the video with Todd Fink in it on Sunday.
You just sent me the lesson. I can't find the other thing.
No. Well, I also sent it's in the same email that I sent it to Karen.
It's in the same email. Okay, let me just see. Because I need
watch it. It's really good.
A lot of rage is coming up. A lot of my self-hatred, so I need it. Thank God for him. Thank God for Tom. I'm looking.
I think we might have been up to paragraph 4 on this.
Okay, so it's the Dropbox. Oh, here it is. I got it now. Thank you. I will listen. I have to get off at 12:30, so I'm going to spend time listening to this stuff. And then tonight, what are we doing, Lynn? Tonight is what? Do you know? You girls can't hear me?
I do not know.
Well, then, we'll just see, because I'm going to call Rafi later today anyway. I got to do the release because I get hooked quickly. When hatred starts coming up, you get hooked in it because it's scary to you know, because you hate everything. So,
Yeah. Which is kind of crazy because, you know, you don't know everything. So how could you hate everything?
well, that's it. It's just your self-hate. There's nothing out there but just
Yeah,
me and my mind and my thoughts.
exactly. Exactly.
I feel like I'm an alcoholic that just relapsed. That's all.
Yeah, I hear that completely. Dove, go ahead. And if you've got that, did you recorded Todd yesterday? Or
Oh, no,
His
I
teeth
just,
and his
oh,
lesson.
the link from Maureen. Okay.
yeah, I just sent the, Joni's video link. That's all.
Okay. Okay, good. All right.
What I want to say is I mentioned earlier, I think it was on Sunday or Saturday, whatever, that intuition, a lot of people feel that's the same thing as listening to Holy Spirit. Now, as it happened, just today, I was listening to Ken Wapnick, and he was talking about the five senses. Now, the five senses is anything that senses outside, like eyes, ears, touch, anything that senses outside of you. Intuition doesn't sense outside, it's within. So that's like another way of looking at it. You're hearing from within, not from without.
Right. And intuition is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Would have to be, right?
Right. Well, I think that what Karen was talking about, everything happens perfectly.
Right.
That's the way I see things. If you accept all things as it was planned for you, whether you call it backward causation, if you accept all things as happening for you, it's the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, Dub, you've been I told you, you're one of my favorite teachers because you
Oh.
just, I just figured I could listen to you forever and not have to do the work. That's all.
I think people did that with Ken too.
Cliff notes I got cliff notes from him. And then it was like, you know,
Yeah.
I think
Gloria.
I think you also have to share it and teach it and make it a part of you too. I mean, because
well, I am. I'm going to come on Tuesdays at 9:30 to teach parents and children. And then I'm going to, and then we'll see as we go on because we used to have lessons in Gather. Like we would have somebody like read the lesson of Ken's and it was just really helpful. Do you remember that, Dove?
yeah, right. Otherwise, it stays as a concept.
Right.
And I forget who is it. No, I think it's Keith. It's Keith reminds you all the time. Salvation, only salvation can be said to cure. Salvation can be said to be an escape from all concepts. So if you hold it as a concept, that's the ego saying, "Oh, I know this shit."
That's what it does. That's what it does. Yeah. Doesn't want you to go further.
So you don't want to be right. You just want to be happy.
Yep.
Yeah. Glorian has her hand up and so does Karen. Go ahead, Glorian.
Yeah, exactly. I like what Dove shared, and if you could send me that video, I'd appreciate it too. And
Okay, Gloria, I'm sending it right now to you.
thank you. I think it depends because basically, like if you're giving somebody a reading, that's an aspect of mental and it's still part of the perceptual world, which is ego. But if you're in a state of receptivity, which is where you're receiving inspiration from the higher mind, then it's just moving through you without any aspect of mental thought at all. So I think there is a way that you can discern that there, whether if it's an aspect of the illusion, the same idea. Do we want to make a better illusion or are we stepping out of the illusion? And I think that's what you said there, Dove. And that is the goal. And where Joel would talk about that as the click when we move into that state of the quiet mind, which is what Jesus is telling us, the holy instant, that's where we are receiving. We're no longer thinking. And that is where your soul supersedes your ego. And you're from that place. So there can be both. I mean, you can get insight on the level of the world, but we're really not here to be fortune tellers. But the idea is to move into that state of receptivity where you're receiving and you become the embodiment of the light to express to you. Thanks.
Perfect.
Okay, I just want to say that I'm sending it right now to you, Gloria, and also to Mickey. Is there anyone else who wants it, as long as I'm just about to send it out?
Sure, send it to me.
Thank
Lynn,
you.
okay, Lynn, and who else? Who? Oh, okay, I'm sending it to Lynn. If anyone else wants it, just say so. I
Thank you,
also,
Dov.
what?
She
Thank
said, thank you.
Okay, okay, very good. Okay, I just saw something from Bikini Weil, who's really an excellent teacher from Australia. And she says the function of God's teachers is to remember that we are dreaming. And I kind of agree with that. Once you really know that you're dreaming, you already have become cause. And that's what all forgiveness is for, is to recognize that I'm cause and
Right.
not effect. So if I find it, I'll put the picture up in the chat. I'm looking for it now.
All right. Karen, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dov. The course says awareness of dreaming is the real function of God's teachers.
That's
That
it.
is,
That's it. Thank you. That's it. Yeah.
yeah, that's in the manual for teachers. But what I wanted to just piggyback off of, I love what Gloria shared, and I love what Dov shared about, so he said, well, backwards causation is basically just a term, it's a concept for what the course is saying. And that's exactly as I listen to different teachers, and I love everyone's different, ideas and everything everyone shares. It's nice to listen to different ways of looking. But for me, I mean, and I know for Gloria, like Joel is like, I think maybe her biggest teacher besides the course, right? And I heard Gloria once say Joel is all I need or something like that, and it's like, well, for
Oh,
me,
did
it's
I?
like you did say that once. You did.
Okay, well, it's
And-
true.
and so I feel like for me, it's like the course is really everything I ever hear, including Joel, everyone share, I hear it in the course. It's the same thing in different forms. So, it's just so beautiful because it's all the same, and we all have the same, we all have the same interest in awakening from this dream of separation. And that's what it boils down to, that we are not separate from God, that is that's the biggest temptation, and that's what he says. Separation is the only that we really need correct. That's the only thing that we have to really, really undo. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. You kind of, at the end there, kind of like seemed like you were distant and far away. Just the last couple of sentences, the last sentence you said, it was interesting. Gloria, please go ahead.
Yeah, that was so interesting that she said that came
It
through
sounded
me.
like she was in heaven talking.
Which is true, because
Right, it is.
ultimately it's the one mind. So the course, Joel, it's the one mind, the Christ mind that comes through. So that's what we want to do, is tap into the Christ consciousness. And I think if we recognize beyond all the religions is the truth and is love. So basically, Jesus tells us in the course that those seeking conflict will find it because it's in their mind. So if we are aligning our mind with the higher mind, then that is what we see everywhere. If we're involved, we're attached to the ego, then we're going to look at comparison, separation, judgment, condemnation. So that's the idea. There's one Christ mind, and you really can see that everywhere, expressing everywhere once you accept it as what you are, and it's in your mind. And I'm going to circle back to, I think it was Dove who said it, the objective is to recognize your dreaming. And I really do feel that is at the bottom of it, because once you've accepted that you're dreaming, you are identifying with yourself separate from the body, as the beholder, as the witness, as the observer. So you've moved yourself above that battleground into the higher mind, where you're recognizing that these are images that I've made, and they're separate and apart from what I am. So thanks for that, Dove.
Karen said the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's so clear, so true. Are we on paragraph 4? Is that what I hear of the 2 uses of time?
I think that's what we were up to.
Okay. So, who would like to read this? And I'll move it as we go along.
I just want to say, am I coming in clear, Lynn, or is it coming up?
Nope, sounds like you're in a tin can far away.
Okay, I'm going to get on the computer. It's my phone. I'll be back.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's interesting. All right, who would like to read paragraph 4?
I'll read it.
Okay, great, thank you.
The belief in hell. Oh no, I'm on the other phone. Hold on a minute, girls and guys. Okay. The belief in hell is inescapable to those who identify with the ego. Their nightmares and their fears are all associated with it. The ego teaches that hell is in the future. Oh, yes. For this is what all its teaching is directed to. Hell is its goal. For although the ego aims at death and dissolution as an end, it does not believe it. The goal of death, which it craves for you, leaves it unsatisfied. No one will follow the ego's teaching is without the fear of death. That is so freaking true. Yet if death were thought of merely as an end to pain, would it be feared? Wow. We have seen this strange paradox in the ego's thought system before, but never so clearly as here. For the ego must seem to keep fear from you to hold your allegiance. Okay, where am I now? I lost it. Yet it must engender fear in order to maintain itself. Again, the ego tries and all too frequently succeeds in doing both by using disassociation for holding its contradictory aims together so that they can seem to be reconciled. The ego teaches thus, death is the end as far as hope of heaven goes. Yet because you and the ego cannot be separated, and because it cannot conceive of its own death, it will pursue you still because guilt is eternal. Yeah, I thought that. You know, I've heard people say, like, when you die, if you're still in the ego, you're going to be in that hell that you're in with the ego here, which is not true. Anyway, such is the ego's version of immortality, and it is this the ego's version of time supports. So this is like, this for me has to be just 2 chapters, 15 and 16. I have to just say, when I fall down the rabbit hole, it is not a big deal. However, I will just, my mind will distract me because I don't want to look at the fear of God. It has to be that. So that's all. Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else wants to share, I'm going to give up the mic. But what it's basically saying is the ego believes that we die, and we don't. We don't even die. We're a mind. We're not people. What Florian has taught me a lot too was you get up in the morning, you say, I and my Father are one, because you are. If you're not the character, you have to be God.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, and seriously, that's last night I was not feeling well. I was sick and in a kind of crazy place, being that I had a high fever, and so I was just laying on my bed and just asking the question, what is the body? Which is the thing that we're on now. What is the body? And what is this thing that I think I am? And how is it that it is an expression of God, an expression of love? And, is it an attack on God or an expression of God's love? And so if I identify with the ego, I'm going to be seeing it as an attack and against God's will. But if I'm looking at it through the Holy Spirit, I see that it can be nothing but love, because that is what it is. That's what everything is. So, anyway, Karen has her hand up. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. What comes to me is, what is it for? What is the purpose? You know, what is the purpose of the body? It's either, like you said, to extend love or to project fear. Which teacher am I listening to? I love what Sharon shared about death, you know, and what this is saying, that you know, the death is the end as far as hope of heaven goes. Yes. Yeah, because you and the ego cannot be separated, and because it cannot conceive of its own death, it will pursue you still, because guilt is eternal. Such is the ego's version of immortality. And this is, you know, it's very interesting to me because, you know, this is my uncle and I were talking about this, and a friend of mine just passed away on Sunday, and she believed, because we talked about it, she believed that once you die, you're done, lights out, you just don't exist, nothing exists anymore. And I talked to her a little bit about the course, and you know, she respected my beliefs, but she didn't agree with it at all. And my uncle feels the same way, that once you die, you're done, it's over. There's nothing else, you know. So, you know, it's just trying to, you know, talk to him a little bit about it. And I was saying that, you know, I do believe, of course, that the body dies, but the truth of who we are spirit, and spirit never dies. And that's personally for me why I believe in reincarnation, because I believe that the spirit goes on. It just does. And
Well,
that's
maybe,
why
but we're still in heaven. We, the Son of God, never even left. So maybe we just, our body drops, right? I'm sorry, Karen, I totally
yeah,
know.
yeah, like Ken would say, puppets, right? Same
Yeah,
thing.
so we're already in God now. We're already in, we never left heaven. The character that we're playing is really just a character. So whether we go on or we don't, if we're not informed, who cares?
Exactly.
You
We're at home. Exactly. We're at home dreaming of exile. And I would like Gloria to share, if she wants. I would love her to share a little bit about her experience when she died, you know, when she had that near-death experience, because I was explaining to my uncle what I believe is that when we die, our consciousness never dies. So we're wherever our mind is, if we're believing we're going to go to a dark place, we're probably going to go to a dark place. You know, if we're at peace, we're probably going to be peaceful. But what Sharon just says, like, we're at home dreaming of exile. It never ends.
No, we
And
don't just, we're not going to go to a bad place. I don't think
no,
at all.
well, in our thoughts, we might. We just don't know. Our thoughts never end. The consciousness stays the same. I mean, the consciousness is wherever we're at. That doesn't change. That doesn't.
Right.
It just keeps going. I believe that, you know. And so I'd like Gloria to share about her experience, because she kind of had something happen to her similar. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, you guys. I want to jump on. There's so much was said here. My goodness. I don't know if I should let Mickey go first because I do have a lot to say. You want to go first,
No,
Mickey?
no, you go ahead, Gloria.
Okay. Well, I think as far as reincarnation is concerned, Jesus tells us in the Course that it's not. But the reason he says that is because in truth, the error hasn't occurred at all. So this world is not existent to our reality in the kingdom. However, on the level of the world, on the perception of the ego, I agree with you, Karen. I think reincarnation does exist because it gives us that opportunity to forgive the unresolved guilt that we are projecting onto the world. Everything that we see out there, we own. So that's how I felt about that. And I think as far as the near-death experience, which really to me, I call the near-life experience, because I can feel, it's hard because I'm going to put into words what I felt. So what I felt was reality, that experience of oneself as awareness. So once I got through that tunnel and got to that place where, you know, there was the light, and then there was still a veil, but I could see the light coming through. And then I recognized all these little sparks of divinity coming to greet me. And then I made that choice, knowing that if I did go through, I wouldn't come back. But the sparks of divinity that I saw, I recognized myself as that, being that it seemingly was separate, but it was of the one substance Okay, so the substance, just what Joel would talk about would be God is the substance of all form, expressing as the individualized souls. So what you said there too, I agree with that, because what we see, we own. And what we see, we believe. And actually, that's what goes into that next sentence. So why don't I let Mickey speak first, and then I want to, if it's okay, I'd like to read this paragraph.
Thanks, Gloria. And I would like to hear your take on what I'm about to talk about, because I read something the other day. A friend of mine sent me this post that somebody had about that only a tiny portion of our consciousness is needed to run this body, this meat suit that we're in when we come here, that the rest of our holy self, our larger consciousness, and that's still not beyond the veil. You know, if we're talking about what is sent, oh, hang on, I got to plug in here before my computer shuts down. That if we have completely realized ourselves and go back to God, then we have nothing to do with consciousness. It is just being. It is
Yes.
just our God self.
Mm.
But until we're there, we're our holy selves that is running the consciousness show, and that only a very small part of that is needed to run what we think of as existence in this body. And when this body dies, then that little shard of us goes back into the larger consciousness. So I'd love to hear Glorian's take on that based on her NDE.
I'm going to tell you what's coming to me about that now. What's just coming through to me about what you said. Basically, consciousness. The Course talks about consciousness in chapter 3, like on the level of the ego. Joel talks about consciousness with the capital C, the Christ consciousness, which is all there is. So all there is the kingdom, and we have never left there. The kingdom is our consciousness. The Christ consciousness, what we are in truth, is the kingdom of God, that beingness, that isness, that eternal life that's invisible everywhere. I am everywhere, and everywhere is here now. This is a mistaken perception. This is a false idea about what we are. We had everything and thought there was something more than everything, and split into this, which is the nothingness. So ultimately, this world is not real. All there is the eternal now. And in that holy instant, when we still the mind, we move into that space of non-judgment and true forgiveness, where we experience ourselves as that unending spirit of God, the I am presence. And in that, there's no more projection. Could you guys just excuse me a moment? Somebody rang my bell. I'll be right back. Can someone pick up the mic? Thanks.
Sure. Thank you, Gloria. And I love this conversation. And a big part of the reason that I love this conversation is I think we get confused about it and start thinking that you know, what's I'm going to go on to another life. When we think about it, and I know I'm not the only one here who has had experience of other lives. I remember other times. I remember when I was a kid, and we would be, one time we're driving to visit family in Kansas, and we had never been there before. And I was telling my mom, oh yeah, I know this road. We're going to go up here, and then there's going to be a red barn over here, and then there's going to be a bridge, and we're going to go through a covered bridge. And that, I know, I was telling her everything about where we were going before we got there, because I remembered it. I remembered being there, but I never was there in this lifetime that I know of. I was, maybe 7, 8 years old. But I have had memories of other times, other lives, other situations, and Helen herself. Look at all the visions and dreams that she had about past lives and being, a priestess and being with Bill. And, if you're reading Absence from Felicity, it's full of, past life stuff. So, so what is happening here I see Glorian's back. So what is happening here, I think it is, the script is what we used to call, when I was a kid, the Akashic record. And it is exactly as, Todd Vink was also talking about. It's already there, and we're just living it. We're just looking at it now. But all the lives we've ever lived and all the situations we've ever been in, we have all been there because we are one mind. That's why you have, how many people that say, I'm the reincarnation of Saint Thomas, or I'm the reincarnation of, Mary's mother, Mother Anna, who, I had memories of. We're all one mind. So of course we've all been everywhere, everything, everywhere, all at once. I just watched that movie again the other day, and it just still blows me away, how they were able to express that whole everything, everywhere, all at onceness. And of course they made it into an adventure and a fearful thing, but in reality, it was really talking about the reality of our situation, that we are everything, everywhere, all at once. And anyway, Glorian, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lynn. Absolutely. And that's the idea, that this is all images in our mind that we're projecting out there. And yeah, Jesus told us that, the minute we made the mistake, the correction came in. So ultimately, it's our belief in this false mind, projecting it out there, that's keeping it going and going and going. I just want to make sure, Mickey, did I answer your question before I stepped away?
Hang on. So I know what you're talking about is the absolute. The
Right.
absolute is that this consciousness that we think we're experiencing never existed. So I got a little confused because sometimes we talk about consciousness in two different
Right.
ways.
Right.
The larger conscious, and a lot of people say, or some teachers say, that in God there is no consciousness. There is just being.
Right.
There is just the I am.
Right.
So, we have to be careful and define in what way are we using that word consciousness. I
Absolutely.
was using it as not the I am. The I am was separate from what
Right.
I was talking about. I was just talking about consciousness as we're experiencing it, and that this so-called consciousness that we think we are in this body is only a very, very small portion of the consciousness outside of God, not the I am, but the consciousness that we experience in outside of the body. So that does get reincarnated, that does experience a near-death experience, that larger consciousness. I think since I read this post that my friend sent me, I'm really redefining, okay, this consciousness that we think we are in as the small piece in this body is just a shard of the larger consciousness, not the I am, but the consciousness that gets reincarnated, that thinks it's in a body sometimes and thinks it isn't in other times, that might experience consciousness outside of the body, but still not in the I am presence. So I'm sorry, I'm talking all over the
No,
place.
that's okay. Basically, if you read text chapter 3, that the way the Course describes consciousness, that is what you are talking about, which is great. And let me just say, the Christ consciousness is beingness, is isness. It's this infinite, invisible presence of God everywhere. So that's how it is in the absolute, in truth. What we are, beyond everything is God. It's all God. So the idea is, without the ego is a projection of guilt that really isn't, like, my thoughts are images that I have made, right? So images are a projection of guilt, but nothing could ever exist without God, energy, light. That's the reality. That's the, everything broken down to its simplest form is energy. So it is God. But ultimately, this is a mistaken belief about what we think we are. And if I could just read the paragraph, I think it'll clarify that for you. Okay?
Okay, great. Sure.
So the belief in hell is inescapable to those who identify with the ego. And we can read less in my grievances hide the light of the world from me. The belief in hell, it is not real. The
Where are
belief,
where are you reading from, Glor?
number 4 here,
Okay, thanks.
you got it. So belief is not reality. It's a mistaken idea about what I believe I am. So the belief in hell is inescapable to those who identify with the ego. Their nightmares, which is what this is, and their fears are all associated with it. So if we weren't identified with the ego or with the grievance, we would not be perceiving fear. The ego teaches that hell is in the future, for this is what all teaching is directed to. So basically, the ego wants to keep you in this idea of a past and a projected, imagined future to keep itself alive. Hell is its goal. What we perceive here, being identified with the ego, being separated from the Father, is hell. For although the ego aims at death and dissolution as its end, it does not believe it. The goal of death, which it craves for you, leaves it unsatisfied. It's full of projection of past and future and manipulation, and just the idea of death is separation. So whatever form that manifests, it keeps it going to keep itself alive and unsatisfied and unfulfilled. So we'll constantly continue to seek outside of ourselves. What Jesus tells us in the Course, seek not outside yourself. No one who follows the ego's teaching is without fear of death, because it's what we believe that we are, and it's not real. And the imagination and the images projected from that have to disintegrate because of their non-reality. Yet if death were thought of merely as an end to pain, would it be feared? Right? So it's not believing that. It's projecting guilt outside itself to keep itself alive, so that we believe that it will continue, pain will continue. We have seen this strange paradox in the ego's thought system before, but never so clearly as here. For the ego must seem, where'd I go? Oh, thank you, Lynn. For the ego must seem to keep fear from you to hold allegiance. For the ego must seem to keep fear from you to hold your allegiance. It wants you to identify with it. It wants you to believe that it's real and that this is what's going on. Yet it must engender fear in order to maintain itself. So that's the whole idea. The more you believe in fear, the more it grips you, it stays alive, because the ego is what you are in this false perception. Again, the ego tries, and all too frequently succeeds in doing both, by using dissociation, separating itself, for holding its contradictory aims together, that they seem to be reconciled. So the idea, the contradictory aim, it keeps fear from you. You think that by identifying with it, you're safe. So that's the way it's doing that in that sense. But it's engendering fear in the projection everywhere, what we're seemingly seeing outside ourselves, to keep it real. Okay, so let's go back to this. So seeming so dissociation for holding its contradictory aims together so that they seem to be reconciled. The ego teaches thus, death is the end as far as hope of heaven goes. Because how could we maintain the peace of God and the oneness of being when we're constantly distracted with projection and attack and defense, which is the same thing? And that's what he's talking about here. Attacking, defending, just all the crazy that goes along with it. Yet, because you and the ego cannot be separated, and because it cannot conceive of its own death, because it thinks it's going to live forever. Because if it does disintegrate, it goes back to nothingness. It knows it's not real. Ultimately, in truth, we've never left God. On some level, we recognize that. It will pursue you still because guilt is eternal. So that's what it's trying to tell you, that this unresolved guilt continues to be projected out there in the dream world. And that's why I believe what Karen was saying was correct, that we come back again to forgive the guilt that we still are perceiving outside of ourselves. So yet, because the ego cannot be separated, and because it cannot conceive of its own death, it will pursue you still because guilt is eternal. In the ego's realm, thought is guilt. All judgment is guilt. That's why we have the atonement process, which is the undoing of fear in this, in what we're perceiving to be real, that brings us back to the atonement, to the oneness of the Christ that I am. Such is the ego's version of immortality, to keep guilt real, to keep it alive, so that we maintain fear and we maintain our identification with the false perception, keeping us in hell. And it is this the ego's version of time supports. Linear time, past, future. It supports the ego's maintaining alive. And we know that the way out of that is through the holy instant, where we accept ourselves as that spirit of God. And that's the true forgiveness. When there's no more judgment, there's no more guilt being projected outside of us. That's complete forgiveness in the silent mind. So I hope that helps. Thanks.
That was amazing. Let me tell you, this is helping me. I have to be quiet because I want to just listen, but thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. And yes, that was absolutely, really beautiful. And as you were reading and as I was listening and thinking about it, when we're talking death is not just the end of the body. There are many forms of death. And Jesus talks about death in all its forms, sickness and all sorts of things that lesson 167 says, there in this world there appears to be a state that is life's opposite. You call it death, yet we have learned that the idea of death takes many forms. It is the one idea which underlies all feelings that are not supremely happy. This is lesson 167. It is the alarm to which you give response of any kind that is not perfect joy. All sorrow, loss, anxiety, and suffering and pain, even a little sigh of weariness, a slight discomfort, or the merest frown, acknowledge death, and thus deny you live. So just that whole idea of all the little deaths that we are, I mean, I don't feel good. I'm pissed off about this. I think, I see, bad things happening. I stub my toe, whatever it is. If I'm not supremely joyful, guess what? I've chosen death. It's a form of death. That's crazy when you think about it. That, if it, and he says that, so many times, whenever you're not wholly joyous, whenever you're not feeling wholly joyous, it's because you have reacted with a lack of love to one of God's creations, and that is death. Not feeling wholly joyous is death. So, wow. Um, and he also says it's like a trigger for you. It should be that once you get this alarm, it is the alarm to which you give response of any kind that is not perfect joy. It's an alarm. Yeah, Karen, go ahead. Oh, and Glorian has her hand up too. I'm sorry.
I think Lorian was first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to, everything you said. He says a lot more in lesson 163, which is really good, but it all boils down to the thoughts that we could be separate from God, and that's what death is. And I think for me, it helps me because I really believe that this course is really preparing me for the death of, my special relationships if they seem to pass before I do, because death was a very hard thing for me to accept, before, like I had a really hard time when, my husband passed away. I had a really hard time when my dad passed away. My dad passed away in 1998, and it was devastating. And my husband in 2010, it was absolutely devastating, absolutely devastating. And it does not have to be devastating, because it is not devastation. It's the miracle looks on devastation and reminds the mind that what it sees, it's false. They didn't go anywhere. Nothing changes. That the consciousness, though, that I love what Mickey brought up, and it is in chapter 3, as Glorian said, and that is the first split. Consciousness was the first split, and that is the one thing about the course that I think is different from any other spiritual teaching that I ever read. Now, I'm sure maybe someone else has read that, but I have never. So I think that might be a little unique about the course, but I may be wrong too. So thanks.
Yeah, it's because non-duality, there can't be a split. So there are other belief systems. I mean, if you listen to even non-dual teachers who call themselves non-dual teachers, unless they're saying there is nothing but God and God is all there is, um, that until you understand that there's nothing but God and God is all there is, and you identify that God being as being what you are, because you can't be anything different. See, the idea of consciousness, it gives the thought there's something to think about or to be conscious of. And if all there is one, there's nothing to be conscious of. It just is. And so there's no other, there's no outside, there's no inside, it's all the same, it's all just one thing. So, and that's not something that's easy to understand, because, we are one thing looking at itself, one thing looking at another. That's how the mind, the ego works. It expresses as one and another. There's two. So, as long as long as you're, seeing there's one and another, I can see myself. But who, if there's only one, who am I seeing? Who's seeing what? It doesn't work that way. So really, and you have to know that that's something that but you are not conscious of, because consciousness would imply that there was something to be conscious of. So he talks about it in let me look here real quick. In
Chapter 3, section 4, paragraph 2.
actually, I'm looking at text chapter 1 in Revelation Time and Miracles. He says, let's see. Revelation induces complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. It reflects the original form of communication between God and his creations, involving the extreme personal sense of creation, sometimes sought in physical relationships. Physical closeness cannot achieve it. Miracles, however, are genuinely interpersonal and result in true closeness to others. Revelation unites you directly with God. And that is oneness. Miracles unite you directly with your brother. Neither emanates from consciousness, but both are experienced there. Consciousness is the state that induces action, though it does not inspire it. You are free to believe what you choose, and what you do attests to what you believe. So consciousness is the state that that um, that we can experience in. That's why consciousness is, yes, it was the first split, because before that there was no experience, because there was no one and the other. There was no other, there was only one. So that's really what the truth of what we are is. And I can't you can't change that, or do anything about it until you actually know it. And you only know it when you don't know the other. If that makes any sense. When you stop knowing the other, then you know the one. Yeah, Glorian, go ahead. And Odsie's here.
Yeah.
Odsie, are you and Wayne on today? I didn't see Wayne the last couple days. So
Yeah, the last I heard he was going to be here, but then I didn't hear back from him. So he's in another land. I just thought I better come check.
yeah, because he didn't come in yesterday either.
Okay. Well,
So
it's so good to hear you back. I don't see you, so just hear you back.
well, here, I'll show you me.
Good.
It is good to be
Hi.
back. Yeah, it is good to be back, and it's good to see you too as well.
Well,
Um,
can I just take a minute just because
sure.
I just want I'm sorry everybody here. I'm not sorry, but I'm a Canadian, so it's just in the blood that I say it. But please, can I ask you, tell me something about the experience?
I missed what you said, Ozzy, because I got a phone call.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. Could you tell me something about the experience that you had? Just
Oh
whatever
gosh. Oh.
comes to mind.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Um, It was cold and wet in Scotland, so that's one thing. Lots of rain, and we did. We had uh, just these wonderful meetings. It was 44 people who were involved in A Course of Love, and in the books that Sebastian Blakesley has been channeling, the Choose Only Love series, and Age of the Heart, and then he has this new one that just came out, this Resurrection one, which is something I would like to start sharing here in a group as well, because I think it's really he what's happening is that he's being given guidance that now it's time for us to stop diddling around, and I'm upset about this, and I'm worried about this, and stop all this, trying to psychoanalyze ourselves and bring ourselves into some sort of compliance with A Course in Miracles, and I mean, to now just get over that, and just now just live as the living Christ, just now live as the resurrected Christ, which is what Jesus tells us in A Course in Miracles. We are the resurrected Christ, but we don't see ourselves as that, because we still have to figure this out. I still have to learn how to forgive my whatever. He's he's basically saying that time is done, grow up now. Quit dragging this bag of crap around with you, and just now's the time for us
Listen,
to.
Lynn, listen, you're on this retreat, doing this work, healing the one mind over in Scotland. Yeah, I know who you are, but I recognize somebody else right now in here. And whilst you were gone, there was healing work being done here. Mountains moved.
Oh, I
Things
love that.
things have happened that are so huge. And you saying this is just like, well, I already knew this and I'm ready.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
So
Good. Yes. Yeah.
tell me more. Tell me more. Sorry, I
Okay,
had to
so
just.
so anyway, so that's what it was all about was, we did a lot of things. We sang songs and we danced and we had played musical, it was like lots of that going on. And then just um the 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 dialogue, the conversation of, how we go about in the world to do these things that we are here to do. And and it was people from all over, 16 different countries, who all had been there, uh, uh, either supporting, or translating, or doing audiobooks of all these different books. So all these people are really steeped in this this course of love business. And so it was so incredible to be with them. And we didn't do, there was no storytelling or, what happened in my life, or it
Right.
was
Yeah.
all, here's our purpose, here's what we're here for. And it was really just so so lovely, and so many people that were just wanting to join in being the
Yeah.
way. So so yeah, it was really, really good. And so now I've got to ask you because really that's all we did all week. It was
Yeah.
talk and walk, and we had wonderful food. They made wonderful food. Findhorn is an amazing place. It's just an amazing place, very spiritual, uh,
Oh, wow.
very, very beautiful, eco village, eco garden, just really right by the sea, and um, really, really lovely. So that was, the great experience also. And so yeah, there were some trials and tribulations getting there and getting back and all.
Right.
And I did get COVID. A lot of people got COVID. So a
Right.
lot of people
Right.
came home with some sort of an
Yeah.
illness. But I think that actually is a lot of it has to do with the letting go of
Mhm.
these thoughts in the world, because uh, it's like a reaction to
Mm,
that that deep spiritual work, that the body just says,
yes.
whoa,
Stuff
wait a minute,
shifting.
you're
Yeah.
you're freaking me out here. I need to do something different now. So in getting COVID has been a real experience for me too, and it's very cool, and I'm doing really well. But I have to ask you then, that because you said, lots of shifts and things had happened,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah. It's just
so
amazing.
yeah.
Well, first off, I apologize because I mean, if I had something in me that had the feeling, I would be upset, but I'm really just laughing at the fact of how I can really clear a room.
Oh
As
no.
I come in, I know it's not true, but I'm just laughing because I'm like, Lynn, I'm like a little kid, and I just really felt compelled to reach out, and it's all good and perfect, but just really a big shift, I don't even know if I've even processed it all, Lynn. Like it's, see, what do you say? It's just, when you expect, here's an example in the world. My child's partner, we had a very difficult start, all of us, in the relationship. My husband, them, me, like this whole dynamic, it was insanity, to the point where there were times where I would be screaming about things, like screaming, and the recognition to get how it was me that I was screaming at in this other person who was me, but not me. And then in the real world here, happening now, the vertical versus horizontal timeline, in that you would think they were my daughter today. You would think that her and I were grown as adults. Yesterday we spent time in the yard washing rocks to make a little river thing. Maybe about an hour and a half, her and I. This was time together we spent, them and I. How a relationship can change that much between two people, a 52-year-old, a 19-year-old. There's no other word but God is. Well, that's two words. God is. It ain't any of us. We can't do this. It's such a joke. I love it though. And I went through another whole thing again, but I didn't go through it alone for the first time. I wasn't alone, because there isn't an I. Like there's it's just, there's so many times that I'm like, oh, I know, and then I'm like, I don't know. And the drop-in is like, my head has been exploded about 800 times. So that's where I'm at.
That's pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing, Auntie.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and there's no words for that.
Yeah.
Really, there are no words for that. But,
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I'm so happy the planet is like, I just feel it, the non-planet, whatever, and whatever, I'm excited, yay, like a kid in a candy store.
yeah, that's awesome. That is really awesome, because that's what we're here for, is just, to experience this and love it and know that it's all God.
Yeah.
Every bit of it is God. And that's why, I think it was an amazing thing to go on this big long trip. I know Wayne and his family are on a big long trip right now. And have you talked to him since he's been in Amsterdam?
Well, we did have a meeting. Sorry, my mouth just got really dry.
Okay.
And it sounded to me like something's happened with him too. Like a huge thing.
Wow.
There's shit happening. Whoop. Are we on
It
YouTube?
is. Absolutely it is. Yep, we are, but that's okay. Yeah, absolutely it is, Ozzy. It is absolutely.
And
So,
I'm so excited to be here to watch it unfold and not even like if right now if it was like it's like whatever, I don't even care because it doesn't even matter because it's just right now. I don't have
all
to
perfect.
think about anything else.
Yeah. It's all perfect just the way it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, well, honey, we've been on for a long time.
Well, yeah, I
Everybody
know
left.
you have, yeah. And I
So,
just want to say too about the travel experience. You sound good.
mhm.
Like your respiratory. So
Yeah, I think you want to hear something really crazy? I
mm,
think COVID fixed my breathing
wow.
because I have not had to use my inhaler. I have not had, I mean, honestly, it's like
Wow.
I'm breathing better now than I have in years. And I have COVID. I mean, that's crazy. But I think it did something. I think it shifted something. Um, breathing through my nose, breathing through my mouth,
Right, and
everything.
different altitudes and
Yeah.
different brain stuff just
Yep.
flopping. Yeah. So good.
All different.
Okay, so I'm gonna email you and just and I'll see you
Okay.
whatever later. I'll see you
All right.
later today. I'm
See
gonna
ya
come in.
later. All right.
So
I love
have
you,
some good
sweetie.
time here and just thank you for being here and I'm delighted to see you again.
I'm delighted to see you too, and you're looking amazing. So,
Thank you. I've
all
been
right. I love
cutting
you.
my own hair.
You did a good job of it. I love
Yeah,
it.
we talked about that. Yours looks good too. It just, yeah, you look great.
Oh,
So
thank
good.
you.
I
I'm
love you.
feeling great too. All right. I love you, sweetie. We'll talk to you later.